We welcome you to this week's Ask an Attorney. And today we're joined by David Schweigert from the firm of Schweigert, Clemene, and McBride. Welcome, David.
Morning.
All right, today's question, as many of the questions I'm sure you're getting right now, pertains to the COVID-19 pandemic. The questioner asks, I've heard discussions in the news that some business insurance policies may have business interruption coverage that is available for lost business during the COVID-19 pandemic. How will I know if mine provides coverage?
Well, this is a question that we have heard rather frequently in our office. We've been getting a lot of calls about this, and I wish that I could give one answer that would apply to everyone, but in reality, because of the different types of coverages and the different language that exists in these types of insurance policies, the answer is really truly going to be it depends. What business interruption coverage is it's a type of coverage that oftentimes is sold along with your commercial insurance policy that you have. And it provides that in certain events, due to an occurrence is how the insurance industry refers to it as, your business may be interrupted or you may have lost business because of that type of occurrence. For instance, a fire is a normally insured against occurrence. And so if you have a fire in your business that would interrupt your ability to serve the general public in the normal way that you do, there is some coverage sometimes, depending on whether you've opted for that type of coverage, that would pay you for lost profits or expenses that you may incur even though you can't do business. And so the question then becomes is, if we do have that type of coverage, is the losses that I am experiencing due to COVID-19 pandemic, is that a quote covered occurrence under the business interruption policy? And so it's going to depend a lot on the language of the policy.
Okay, David, if you think you do, would the policy have to say specifically COVID-19, or doesn't it have to be that specific?
No. It probably doesn't need to be that specific. Generally when we look at these policies, you're looking at two things. Some policies will define occurrences, and the question is does COVID-19 fit within one of those definitions of an occurrence? All insurance policies are also going to have exclusions that are going to apply. And then the question becomes, does COVID-19 pandemic fit into one of those exclusions? And ultimately, it's going to be up to the court in a lot of instances to decide whether the losses that you have sustained due to COVID-19 fit into a definition of an occurrence that is covered, or fit into the definition of one of the exclusions or exceptions from coverage under that particular section. So again, it's going to be very dependent upon the language of the policies. You're not going to probably ever see, of course, nobody could have foreseen writing in COVID-19 when these policies were written. So instead, it's going to be whether or not there's language that may exclude in general. Just for instance, public health crises. One common exclusion that we see in these in almost every policy is nuclear disasters. I mean, that's just an example of an exclusion. So, whether there's going to be coverage ultimately is going to be determined by the language of your policy, and then how the courts interpret that language.
Got about 45 seconds here, Dave. What should someone do if they want to check and they believe they do have coverage?
Well, they need to make a claim to their company. The company is then going to say, sorry, there is no coverage, or yes, there is coverage. That doesn't end it just because your insurance company may say, no, there is no coverage. I mean, they do that quite often. We often joke that insurance is in the collection business, not the paying business. Mm-hmm. And so, just because they deny coverage doesn't necessarily mean that you can't go to the courts and the courts say, no, that interpretation was wrong. You do have coverage.
All right. Thank you, David, for joining us today. Remember, this advice does not pertain to all cases. For more information, you should contact an attorney.